Your co-host, Dr. Sherelle Hobson. I have my partner in crime, Mr. Bryan Street. So he'll introduce himself later. But we want to make sure, number one, that you are sharing this video and sharing the content. It's so important and imperative in our Black community that we share the knowledge and push it forward. A lot of times we learn things and gather things to ourselves or build relevant relationships with different people, but we keep it to ourselves. We need to make sure that we are spreading the news. So you have to do your part and support the Black podcast by sharing this content, sharing this video so that your audience can hear the stories of our guests that we have. Sometimes we don't feel that it directly relates to us, but you never know who's in your circle that may need to hear from our guest. So please make sure you do your part and continue to support us by also sharing the video. So I have a background in sports administration and leadership. I have a doctorate in sports administration and leadership, but I have a long, extensive experience in life within athletics, from growing up all the way until being a coach and administrator. But what I saw that was common was the challenges that our young Black men were facing within athletics, whether it was dealing with self-identity, depression, just adversity, or just feeling like they're being left out within education. And so I knew that there had to be a change that needed to be made. And I knew that the only way the change was going to be made is if I created something and created a system that would help to create that space for our young Black men to be successful. And so I got my doctorate in sports administration and leadership, and my study was on African American males and the effects of athletics on their educational plans. And a lot of us know that our young brothers and sisters get involved in athletics with the hopes of making it to the lead or making money or having a successful future endeavors, but that's not always the case for all of them. We know that, especially in like football, there's a 1% chance that you would make it to the NFL. So where is the other 99% going? And that's what I like to focus on, not the 1% that make it, but the other 99% that are still looking for their self-identity and still looking for something to do. So I partnered up with this young man, Mr. Bryan Street, who has an extensive background in social work. And so we decided to combine our experiences and our love for Black males and create a program called HSBA. And HSBA is a mentor and leadership program that we implement onto high schools, HBCUs, and colleges to make sure that we change the narrative of who our young Black males are. And so we want your support. And so please make sure you also subscribe to HSBA, or you can go to wearehsba.com and find out more.
All right,
Bryan,
get
can you
my
hear me?
audio right over here. So yes, I always listen to the introduction whenever she's introducing herself, and it makes me think back just on my journey, getting to where I am today, the journey that I've gone through since I've met her, and all the different overlap. It's a small world, but at the same time, it's so huge. There's so many people with so many different desires, gifts, so on and so forth. But when you come across someone that has a vision that's in alignment with yours, you got to link arms one way or another. You got to figure out, okay, what is my strength? What is your strength? How can we put those together and work for the betterment of our community? I had been running as a solopreneur for so long. It was only a couple years back now that I actually found out, you know what? We are so much more powerful when we join together and put our forces together. So my background, as was mentioned earlier, I do a lot in the social work space. That's where my master's degree is in. Actually hold a psychology degree as well. So I do a lot of coaching, training, speaking, so on and so forth, really helping people understand that it doesn't matter what's in front of you. It doesn't matter what environment that you're in. You can actually start to perceive what you're going through completely differently. And eventually that'll start to give you a different life. So much of my work is around that specific space. And I saw so many people in the transitional age going from teenage into adulthood and not really having the resources necessary to make a successful transition. So I wanted to bring about a difference in that space. And I started doing so back in 2015 when I came back to Mississippi, speaking at juvenile detention centers, at colleges, at high school, so on and so forth. And here we are today. HSBA is just now getting under the way. so much more greatness that's going to be coming from that company. So many programs, so many partnerships, so many collaborations, and so many lives being changed. And what we are doing today, who we have before you today, is a gentleman. Um, when I went on his social media, I saw this one T-shirt that he was wearing, and I'm like, you don't find enough brothers who are ready to rock something I was born to teach. Born to teach. When I saw that, I want to get to know this guy. So, as a lot of my guests know, or a lot of our guests eventually hear, I don't like to dig too deep on you before we start our show because I want to have a true, genuine emotion and reaction to what it is that you're going to share with us. So, we're about to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, the nitty gritty from our guests. Without further ado, Mr. Bryan Super Carroll. How's it
Oh,
going?
we got a special guest.
What's up? What's
Yeah.
up?
That's the
Thank,
stinky boo you said, right?
that's my little stink butt right here.
Okay, stink
This is
butt.
Yeah.
You
baby.
have the wrong
This is
name.
baby Super Carol.
Oh, baby
Nice.
super Carol. Hey girl. She don't know what's going on right now, but that's okay. She's quiet, so she all right. Well, thank you
Uh-huh.
for being a guest on the Black Podcast. You do an exceptional work, and we just truly admire what you're doing. And so, if you can, we want to make sure we maximize all our time with you. If you can just start off with letting the audience know, like where you were born and kind of the dynamics of your family. And then we'll work our way up to where you're at right now. But I think that the backstory is so important because we know behind every glory is a story. And so we want to know
Absolutely.
your story.
So my name is Bryan Carroll. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I was actually born in Killeen, Texas, at Fort Hood. My dad was in the Army, so we were there for about a month before he got out. Then we went back to Baltimore. My parents got divorced when I was about 5. So it was me and my sister with my mom. So that was tough growing up at certain points because I've always yearned to have that father in my life, and I didn't really realize how much I wanted it until I started to think back into those crucial moments where having a father, having that support comes into play. And playing baseball, I was the only black kid on the team all the time, and everybody had their daddy there. Playing basketball, I became a really, really good athlete, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, and I always just wanting to get a dad to say good job or somebody to go. I'm still sentimental. I like the movies with the good endings and stuff like that. I always wanted a dad to play catch, somebody to go walk with, go fishing, and doing all that stuff. So it was really important to me. I was blessed that my mom did remarry when I was in about the 8th grade. So it was me, my mom, my father, my sister, so that's what I grew up in the house with.
Okay.
So, and the dynamics of it was definitely a productive family. I always had good examples, a morally good family. So I definitely had to support. My mom's always been my number one fan.
So if you can just talk about, because a lot of times when you're growing up, you don't realize that something is an issue or that you're yearning or missing something until you see something else, right? So, you can you go into details about um, what that feeling was like when you started transitioning into like middle school sports and then to high school, where there were some questions that you probably had and you were transitioning from being maybe you're accepting a scholarship or did you get a scholarship to college? Just what was that experience like for you mentally, and that kind of conversation that you had with your mother when you started to feel like, okay, I'm missing something.
Well, I mean, great question. I can actually go back before then. I heard somebody say something about like toxic masculinity before, and I was trying to think about like what is it. So I started looking things up, and I looked up. I'm a teacher, so I'm looking up toxic. Then I'm looking up masculinity, and I'm trying to put it together. And I never forget when I was young. I was like the typical little boy. I was, wanted to be tough in front of the big boys, didn't want to cry. And we would exasperate so much energy not crying that we weren't even feeling the emotions of any situation because we were trying to impress the big boys, the guys that were 2 or 3 years younger than us, older than us and stuff like that. So I remember that. And that's some of the things that made me such a accomplished and fearless athlete because I had something to prove all the time. And that's what made me dominate out there on the field. And See, information changes situation. So when I was playing ball, I would go to my teammates' house on the weekend, and they would have a house with a driveway, with a car, with a dog, a mommy and a daddy. And we get our little cool cups when we go in our neighborhood, but then they got fruits and stuff like that. And I made up in my mind. I got exposed to something different. I made up in my mind. I said, that's what I want. And I said, when I get older, this is what I want. I've experienced something different. I know that it's out here now. So then you fast forward to the recruiting. I mean, the first letter I got was from Louisville. I came to the room and tackled my mom. I thought it meant a scholarship, but a letter just means that you're on that radar. I didn't understand the recruiting
And a
process.
lot of parents don't know that. They always say, Coach, I got 60 letters. I'm like, you got 60 letters, but that don't mean they offering no money.
Yeah, if they not offering money, they're not serious. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't know anything about the GPAs, the SAT. Mind you, this is my junior year of high school. I had Virginia Tech come to talk to me, Florida Gators, everybody. I was by the end of my senior year, I was number one DB in the state, and I was drafted out of high school in baseball. But I didn't have one school that was able to fully offer me because I didn't have my academics and my SAT score together. So once I started taking my test, I got a really, really bad score. My first time I took the SAT. Like I got like y'all don't judge me. And I'm saying this for testimony purposes. I got a 510. And I'm saying it because it's such a testimony, because the highest you get is 1600. Right now, I'm an accomplished educator who writes curriculum and writes children's books and teaches teachers how to teach. But I got a 510. I was listening to some guys who wasn't on their way to school, that was getting high up there talking about, man, if you don't know the answer, don't answer it. You get points for your answer. So I'm in there like, oh, shoot, I don't know this. I'm good. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to Virginia Tech. I'm going to accept my scholarship. I'm good. But come to find out, I had no idea about it. But once I buckled down, I brought my score up so much. I actually brought my score up 1,000 by the fifth time I took it. Took me a few times. Hey, you fall down, keep going. But they rejected it because they thought that I had cheated. But I didn't have anyone to advocate. Had I had someone like myself to advocate for me in that moment, I could have still accepted my scholarship. But at my school, we had the lowest SAT scores in Baltimore, Maryland, but we had one of the top football, track, and basketball teams in the state, you know what I'm saying? But we just were not preparing the kids academically, socially to do what they needed to do. So there were so many different dynamics that were coming into why nobody was actually going anywhere.
Well, Brian, we have a similar story. So I was the same boat where um, I was top at my school and regionals and state and this and that and getting letters and all those things. Got to my senior year, and coaches started calling me saying, "Can you send your this score, that score, your clearinghouse?" I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yep.
Like, can you just give me the scholarship?" And so my parents, I remember the stress of them driving around. The time that I found out I need the score, they had one more test, the SAT. They had one more left in the summer before it was going to be too late. And we're driving around. My dad spent money on taking me to Silverman Learning Center to see if they can give me a crash course on how to answer these questions. I mean, it was the most stressful experience in my life.
Extremely.
So I knew when I finally got my scholarship to New Mexico State University, when I became a head coach, that was one of the things I was very strict on. You're going to get a scholarship, and I'll make sure it's done right, because it is nothing worse than your senior year, you not knowing where you're going. When you talk about athletics, from my study and also from my experiences, our young black men really get involved in athletics and sports because of certain reasons. Trying to get out of a certain situation, trying to get out of the environment, trying to make it financial. What was your motivation behind more than just your gift that you wanted to be involved in athletics?
Um, the biggest motivation was the biggest thing I kind of preach against now to kids. Like I heard you say, you got more than a 99% chance of not going pro. Only 6% of high school football players go to college. That's between D1, D1 AA, D2, D3, NAIA, and JUCO, and only 2% go D1. That's for basketball and football. Um, and then that's not even counting the 40% that drop out within their freshman year, just college students in general. My motivation is I lacked identity. And as a black man, I feel like you're marginalized. They want you to be hyper masculine, hypersexual, or like an athlete. You got to be something, or else you don't measure up. And I only saw myself through that lens. And the sad thing about it now, we see a dude that's 6'4", 240. We don't say, oh man, you look like a great accountant. Or you can be an astronaut, you can be a violinist, you can be a therapist. No, man, you're a linebacker. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't become that linebacker like we say you should, then you don't measure up. Or if you don't wear these certain type of shoes or dress this certain type of way or get into these gangs and stuff like that. So I was marginalizing my thinking, and I only saw myself as an athlete. You know, I came from my home and I went to a school with opportunities where I could actually, you know, it's not like I was missing exposure and opportunities, but I marginalized myself because of the propaganda that I see every day. And that what you do most is that what you do best. So I was quick to go work out. I wasn't quick to go read. I didn't study. You know what I'm saying? I didn't learn my learning style until I was about 25, 26. You know, so now I know there's no such thing as I'm not a test taker. There's such thing as you don't know your learning style, so you don't know how to apply yourself. But I learned all of those principles playing ball. So I would answer that. The long way I'd answer like I did is by saying I didn't know who I was. And granted, I had a gift on the field and on the court. I didn't know who I was, and that's why I pursued it so heavily. And I realized that when I was a free agent, and I kept getting opportunities. Like I get noticed at a workout in Dallas. Then they say, all right, we got a CFL, NFL workout coming up. We want you to come back in a few months. Then I get a hernia injury. And then as I'm getting older, the door's closing. Long away, I haven't got no film to send scouts. And I'm like, yo, what do I do? And I felt like I didn't make it as a man. Like I started really questioning myself if I didn't get to say, yo, I played in the NFL. You know, and I noticed a lot of my brothers and teammates struggled with that same thing. And it caused a lot. I call it PTSD, post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic sports syndrome. You know what I'm saying? Because our only identity, everything's been done for us. We don't know how to adult. We don't know how to live. So I attached my identity to that. And I never really learned who I was. And through adversity and getting certified and teaching and working as a behavior specialist. Now, you know, MSW, I'm applying for school right now to become an MSW. You know what I'm saying? To get licensed as a therapist. I'm finding out who I am, but I had to wait to, 30 plus to start understanding that. Well, I wish I'd have knew that at 12.
Absolutely. That is the struggle of being, especially the higher you go in athletics, the more it becomes, it's still fun, but it's more stressful, the pressure. And now you hear more athletes now because mental health is becoming more acceptable. So people are more open to say, hey, I'm having these issues. Whereas when we were in school, you can't tell nobody you have an issue. People would think you crazy, and they will snatch your scholarship away. So you had to really internalize. And I didn't realize how much I was attached to my track. I had so many self-identity or insecurities and different things that I battled with throughout my entire life. But I never knew because I always had track to cover it up. And it wasn't until track was over, college was over, and I got here to Houston, I was like, I got to learn myself, because you don't have the stage anymore to mask you. And so that is something that we deal with a lot as athletes, is that you get so attached to being that number one in the state, that number one DB, that running back, that receiver, that this, that you really don't know who you are once that is stripped from you. And that is a killer. That is something that you really, that a lot of young men and women deal with, in particular in our community, because it is tough. So I appreciate you being vulnerable in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to kind of expound on that because I didn't make it to collegiate ball, but I was a four-sport athlete all through high school, and I was a student athlete. Like you get attached to that term, student athlete. So when I went to college and I was only a student, that didn't make sense to me. Like, how can you just be a student? That don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thankful that my parents, they always, and I guess it was something kind of natural as well. I enjoyed school also. So I enjoyed the academic component. So I kept really good grades, graduated high school, 3.89 GPA, four-sport athlete. So I was doing pretty well for myself. But when I got to college, I was lost. That whole identity thing, like if I wasn't in the rec center playing ball every single day, I wasn't myself. Mm-hmm. So that was my downfall. A lot of people look at the fact that I've got 3 different college degrees now, 2 years of my PhD finished. and they assume that I'm just this stellar student. I got kicked out of college. I got dropped down to a 1.76 GPA my sophomore year. I got kicked out. But that's when my vision started to get more clear. And I realized, you know what? I got to find out who I am, what I want out of my life, and what example I want to set for the future generation. Because the same time I got kicked out, I had a son on the way. So I had to be an example for him. Now, one of the things that we as men, that, we see a lot in our culture is we want to push our identity, especially if we're in athletics, we want to push our identity onto our son. So I got my son coming. I'm like, yes, I get a second chance. He gonna make it. Dude ain't got an athletic bone in his body. So I'm like, dang it. But, I started to really learn and internalize the fact that I need to help him find what he excels at, what he enjoys. And from there, he's been able to do all types of things, invited to these top schools all around the nation. He was in DC this summer at a leadership event. He was actually one of their elite students, and there weren't a whole lot of them. But had I continued to push him in a direction that he really didn't care about, he probably would have ended up just like me, not really finding his true identity until later in life. So I'm glad that you touched on that. You mentioned not really finding yours. So you were 26, 27. It was similar to me, man. Like, that's when I went back to get my master's. That's when I was just finishing up my master's degree, if I'm not mistaken. And it was then that I really knew this is the direction I'm going in life. So, if you were to say, you going into or being more of a mentor, are there certain things in the past, aside from what you've mentioned with us so forth, but there are certain things that you make sure you pour into that next generation, take it into consideration some of the advancements in technology, so on and so forth. And just to kind of, make sense of that, when we were coming up, video games, you get your butt outside. Don't be on that game. But now you got multi-millionaire gamers, and you got people who are learning how to code off of video games. So what is your approach in the mentorship space when it comes to battling against some of today's technologies?
Well, I always say people don't care what you know until they know that you care. So the first thing I do, even as a special ed teacher, you get these thick red folders of all the bad things about them, all their diagnoses. I get to know them. Because I tell you, they might swing and hit teachers and throw furniture, but they ain't going to do that in my class. You know what I'm saying? So I get to know them. And I don't talk at them. I talk to them. I create a safe space. So where they feel comfortable with being emotionally vulnerable. And that is the absolute key. Because when you can find out their vulnerabilities, their fears are always going to speak out. But when you can start getting them to verbalize and understand their fears, now you can become with action plans to combat those different things. So I lead with love. I really I let the Holy Spirit minister to me about how I'm even going to approach different things, because sometimes it can be very unconventional. I mean, I made up a word, unconventional about the approach that I may use. But for the most part, man, I sit with them, I talk with them, I get them comfortable. I don't always do the clear. If he want to play catch, we can play catch. You want to just go for a ride? Let's go for a ride. You want to ride bikes? A lot of kids like to go work out until they work out with me and feel, oh, man, he gonna make me work out hard. If you ain't committed, you ain't gonna want to come back.
These kids don't work out like real workout. So they're not trying
they
to
be hot and talking about
they may do or sweat, but they're not trying to hurt.
Yeah, so we do stuff like that. I figure out what makes them tick and what do they like, their common interest. And we start talking about different things, start pulling off the layers. And most of all, just making them feel safe and comfortable. Because when they feel safe and comfortable, they'll start opening up. And, because I want people to get outside from, sometimes the word mentoring, it comes so cliche sometimes, you know what I'm saying? And it can look different for the situation, I've had kids I've mentored working through a program. They might call me to run errands because they don't know how to act in the car. They don't know what to do if I'm on the phone. They don't know what they want to do when they want to get my attention. They don't know how to act walking around Kroger's or Walmart. They don't know what to do at a car dealership. You know what I'm saying? So it's those little things, those teachable moments that we're consistently dealing with are opportunities to grow. But what it requires is a high level of patience in us, because so many times on teachable moments, we fussing, we getting impatient, we mad at kids for not displaying things that we don't display. You know what I'm saying? Or we're mad at them for not acting right in an environment that we haven't created for them to even act right.
That's so
You know what
good.
I'm saying? So you undisciplined, but you expect them to be disciplined. You don't plan well, but you expect them to get up. But they're learning everything they're learning from us. So I try to create the right atmosphere, make them feel safe, and give them what they need, not what I want to give them. We can't mentor them giving them what we want. You know what I'm saying? So
That's real,
Absolutely.
and I'm glad
That's
that you. I'm glad you just made that statement because when I started speaking at the juvenile detention center, it was career week, so I went in and I kind of watched the previous speaker speak the day before, and it was like, okay, I got an agenda. I'm gonna tell you what I want you to know, and then I'm out of here. So when I came in, I sat back, crossed my arms, and they're like, "So what you gonna tell us today? What y'all want to talk about?" So I let them lead it. I let them tell me what got them in there, what's on their mind, what they feel like they need to do to get them out of there. I let them kind of lead a conversation because they're so accustomed to authority figures pressing down on. Like, I'm going to be the expert. You need to listen to me. But, something that we learn in the social workspace is it's always the client first. It's always the client. You got to meet them where they are. Don't try to snatch them up to where you are or where you want them to be. And that's when we close off that vulnerability. Because if they don't see that we care enough to listen, they're not going to open up to us. But when we come up off of our pedestal and we actually let them feel like they're relatable and we're relatable, that's when they open up. And man, I'm telling you, and obviously you can see it in you can hear it just by some of the things you speak on. That's one of the best feelings in the world. When they open up to you and they're like, man, I ain't never told nobody that. Man, I ain't never cried in front of another dude. Like, that's one of the best feelings. And we need more men to be able to help young men open up like that. It's so deep.
That's my mission with men and vulnerability and learning myself. It took me 13 years to, my pastor from college, he was like the first main father figure mentor I had. It took me 13 years to tell him I love him. And I wanted to say, I used to call him and I couldn't get it out. And I'm like, man, what's wrong with me? You know what I'm saying? Like, why am I so emotionally unavailable in that area of saying something like that? And then I got homeboys that, all right, bro, love you. And I'll be like, I do, but it was weird. I had to deal with that and really ask myself some questions, because with kids, I'm super emotionally available. With my daughters, super emotionally available. But why wasn't I on that? So now I'm making my business when me and my dad get off the phone. Love you, Dad. And we need men. And girls are trained to be vulnerable, nurturing. They're playing with dolls. They're trained to pamper them and do all these different things. And I'm not saying we need to get the little boys and have them start playing with no dolls. What I'm saying is we need to. No, I agree.
Listen, Superman dolls, but not no regular dolls, not Barbie dolls.
Yeah, for real. I agree. But we need to train them up in a way where they feel comfortable being nurturing, and let them know that, hey, it's okay to hold the baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't just be like, hey, just go mash and bash. You know what I'm saying? Because when they're not emotionally available, it affects their relationships. It affects their parenting, and then it continues the cycle that we're both here. We're all here trying to break.
Yeah. So I have two questions I want you to touch on. So I know you said you work in special education. Some of the things that I've seen, in particular in our Black community, when it comes to young men, when you go into a school system, and I've worked in all type of school systems and settings, you have two kids, right? You have two kids sitting there, and one kid is jumping around, running around, touching everybody, all up and down the stairs, not sitting down. And the answer to that is he's so hyper. He's just being a little boy. But then you have this other kid who's jumping around, who's running around, who can't sit down. And they say he has something wrong with him. He has some kind of special education or disability or modification. We see that so much within our community when our young boys have those same similar attributes as the other students. One is labeled hyper, the other one is labeled he needs to be in special ed. A lot of times in education, we put them in special ed because, for one, especially if he's an athlete, he can't fail. Teachers can't fail him. He has a lot of modifications, but what what teachers and administrators fail to educate our parents on is that label follows that student for the rest of his life. And when you stick a student in a situation, I always use an example of a student we used to have where every day he'd be late to class. And so I was the only teacher that can really get to him. The teacher said he's always late every single day. So one day I sit in the hallway and I'm watching to see why is this boy late every day. So what he would do is he would wait till everybody go to class.
I ain't want
And
nobody
then
know he's a special ed.
he would sneak into the classroom with the rest of the students because he knew he didn't belong in there. But they had already labeled him as special education. Can you speak more on, have you had any experiences where you had a student where you're like, he just needs a little more time. He really don't need to be in here. Can you speak on that? Because that is a huge problem that we see in the community. It's a lack of understanding and knowledge to the parents that they give to the parents. And kids, they just don't know. They just think it's a perfect situation for them. I can go somewhere where somebody can do my work. I ain't got to do my work. And then they're going to pass me and I get to play. I mean, to them, they winning. But they don't realize that that doesn't help them moving forward. So if you can
Yeah.
speak on that, and where you stand when it comes to that type of situation.
Well, I mean, I was one of them kids. They tried to put me in sped, and I thought I'm like, oh, I'm in the class with all my friends. I'm thinking I ain't know what it was. I thought I'm in the class with all my friends. We hanging out, laughing, having fun. And then my mom said, "Well, they trying to put you in special ed." I was like, "For real?" So I said, "Let me get my act together." I had a student at a school that was 3 grades behind, and he would skip a lot. And they put him in my self-contained behavior class where you had to be emotionally disturbed or bipolar to be in it. He was neither. When I would get him to do little stuff, just I want to test see if he could copy something simple as copying something down. Come to find out, I'm looking at some YouTube videos because I'll be on YouTube University. I'm YouTube University. You know what I'm saying? He was dyslexic. They did the test. He was dyslexic. So it's not that he didn't want to do the work. It's not that he was dyslexic. They didn't have any modifications, anything in place. Now it takes a village. I need these parents to get on board because they quick to blame the school system, but that's your child, self-preservation. Ain't nobody gonna love your child like you will love your child. You know what I'm saying? The schools are definitely, but we're asking them to do way more than they need to do, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? Parents dropping them off like, hey, but I've seen it
Trust me,
so
I
many
know I
times.
got 16 years in. I done been blamed for
Yeah.
a lot of things.
So I hated school, but I love to learn. And I just realized that recently. Probably 70% of the time when I'm in the car, I'm listening to a sermon, an audio book, a podcast. I'm listening to something. I'm learning. I'm on YouTube when I want to learn about brain development. Let me study it on YouTube. My brain conceptualizes it very well. Boom. But I never did well in school. But they were boring. They weren't engaging. I would challenge somebody to say when that kid's off task, I would challenge say, what are you doing in your class? Are you engaging? Because a lot of principals have professional developments and they grilling us hard on them teacher evaluations, and they got the most boring. I'll be wanting to spit a
Yes,
spitball at them doing
yes.
their professional development. Like
1962 professional developments that nobody's using, that does not work.
exactly. So it's like, you know, I have classes like that, and them kids be my special helper. They'll be the most hardworking, diligent, loyal kids you got. That hyper one and want to do everything. All right, come on, I'll put you to work. I got you. And I'm gonna make you my leader. And I'm gonna teach you that leadership ain't just fussing and delegating, but it's leading by example. So now I'm teaching on all different levels. So I just have a different perspective on how the kids, I don't judge them when they come in there. Some of them are touched and they require a lot more love and patience. But hey, that's helping me to grow and it's helping them to grow. And it's sharpening my ability to teach because I know what it's like not to understand something that somebody thinks simple. I used to get so mad, people be like, man, I passed my special ed test. Man, I ain't even had to study for it. Then that's known as being one of the harder tests. But I'm be
Right,
looking at, so I'm just dumb then, huh? Because I done failed it twice. I'm looking at them like,
right.
but I understand that I may have had to do a little more, but that helps me with my teaching because now I scaffold, I break things down. I'm very intentional about how I'm explaining things, and I'm able to teach and explain things at a very high level.
Yeah, and I would agree. I was the same way, and I shared this story previously on another show. Is that yes, I have a doctorate, but it's, everybody has a trigger point, right? And so one of my triggers when somebody says that you're stupid, and I'll be
Yeah.
like, I'm not stupid. But I remember going to college my first year and sitting in a bio biology class, and the instructor was like, okay, so all these things right here, y'all should have learned in high school. So, and I was like, shit, I don't remember none of that, And I'm looking at people like, oh yeah, we learned that in high school. I was like, we did. I remember that. So I had to literally, like, my freshman year in college, like, learn, because, and I don't even know what I learned. I actually just probably got away with just getting away with learning enough to pass. But it wasn't until I started to get into grad school that I started getting more interested in what I wanted to be interested in, where I started to learn more. But I just remember that experience where, if I would have told, I was the girl in high school, in middle school, or elementary school, when they said, okay, we're going to do I think we call it a round robin, where everybody's going to go around the table and read a paragraph. Yeah, I went to the bathroom, the nurse's office, anywhere I can find to get out of reading my paragraph, because I
Yeah.
could read, but I knew I read slower than everybody else. And I didn't want nobody to think that something was wrong with me. And so I struggled with pronouncing certain words. So I learned that as an adult, how to study. I knew that when I was in college and everybody was like, girl, we about to go hit up this place and that place. I'm like, I got a test coming up. I have to read this stuff because I ain't gonna remember none of it. Like, I'm the highlighter, the sticky note, the folding the pages, gotta go back, read it again, use the audio, read it, listen, that's the kind of learner I am. And so I had to learn to be okay with how I learned. And so I share that testimony with my students and my athletes, that, hey, we're not all going to be X, Y, and Z, but that doesn't mean we don't all get to the same place. It may take us a
Yeah.
little bit longer, but you'll get there. And so I know that. So even with my partner here, Bryan, I come up with all kind of stuff. I type all kind of stuff, but he knows before we post, you better read it, because I don't ran through it and I write fast and I know how I process. So that's important that you share that story with them, to know that, hey, you can be a doctor. It may take you 8 years instead of 6 years. You may want to be a lawyer. It may take somebody else 5, but it may take you 7. But it's okay. And so I think that's so important that you're in that space, that you can share those similar stories with them. If you can talk now about, do you do any coaching within your campus, or are you away from athletics when it comes to young men?
Well, no, I'm still working with it. I was coaching, but one thing about Texas is, if you're gonna coach high school or something, tell you, you might go get a college job. You know what I'm saying? But I felt the
Can't for the
need.
rest of your life, because it takes up Monday through Sunday.
Yeah, I felt the need was so important to figure out why so many guys were not going, that should be going, and so to college to play ball, and how they were not expanding, understanding that, hey, these major schools you see on ESPN aren't the only schools. And really, you ain't good enough to go there anyway. So having those tough conversations, like, yo, everybody gonna go D1. But there's this D3 school in Kansas that you can go to. You can go to Louisiana College. You can go to Texas College. You can go to Mississippi College. You know what I'm saying? You can
And
go
you
to one
can
of these,
play, and it's free.
and you can play. You can get cultured. You go for free. You can get 4 years. You might develop, and you can make something out of yourself. Like let the ego. So I started understanding that there's so many different dynamics and so many different layers and levels and so many different schools, so many different options that the kids have. So I wanted to teach them. Then I found out these recruiters is charging these parents all this money just to make a profile and send emails off. You can do that yourself, or you can pay me a lot less. You know what I'm saying? And I can actually be a resource to really help you and mentor the kids. So that's more with my program, Athletic Intelligence, and with the curriculum I wrote for that to help the athletes and the coaches. That's really what I'm focusing on now with the symposiums and stuff now, because I mean, they watch the same guy, they watch the same thing happen every year, that they become what they don't want to become. So we have to, this is where they are, this is where they're trying to get. And during this middle passage, they dropping the ball consistently. Those 6 guys that y'all signed, those 3 guys that y'all signed, one D1, a couple G codes, and some other ones, how many of those guys are actually staying and graduating? How many guys get degrees and coming back and giving back to the community? The percentage gets lower and lower. So my thing is this: if you know that you need a 2.5 and the 820 to go, then I would say, if I'm coaching, my minimum to play on the team would be, if you tell me you want to play college ball, then you can't play if you ain't got a 2.5. and you're gonna take your PSAT as a freshman. You gotta take your practice SAT as a freshman. The districts be offering it for free anyway half the time.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm
And they
saying?
got waivers. So if you ain't got money, they got waivers. There's all
And
kinds
my
of
thing
things
is
you can do out there.
stop spending so much money playing select football and AAU because you ain't about to go to college and play.
And
You
they're not
wasting all your
giving
time doing all
scholarships.
that.
They're not giving out
I tell the
scholarships.
parents, I be telling the parents, focus more on your child's academics and social skills. I'm not saying he don't need to be playing, but if you got to choose, he might need to take a year off, and it's going to make you have to grow as a human being, as a parent. But your child going to need to grow because the worst thing you want is they talent to take them somewhere their character can't handle. You know what I'm saying? They go somewhere and they home within a semester or two. You know, because they couldn't handle it, or they can't even get there. You spent all this money and all this travel, all this time playing AAU and select football, doing all this stuff, these travel teams, and he can't even get a scholarship now. He at Lone Star taking classes, talking about, yeah, I'm gonna go walk on at one of these JUCOs. No, you're not.
No, you're not. If you don't
It's
have
not
no
that
tape,
simple.
if you don't have no transcript, you're not going nowhere. And I think that's important that you share that story because we do sell in education a false advertisement to these kids. Oh man, you come and do this for me, we win championship. They're not looking at the teams that win in district. They're looking at the teams that make it to state. Your team can't make it to state, you're not gonna get looked at anyway. So, those are kind of things that conversations that we have to have. And I appreciate you sharing that space with us. So how did you transition from, because a lot of times in life people push you to do things. Oh man, you're a good coach. You was a collegiate level athlete. Why you not coaching basketball? Why you not coaching football? But when you decided you want to be a motivational speaker or educator or an author, what was that transition like with your circle of people when you separated yourself from what people wanted you to do and what you wanted to do?
Well, I mean, it was tough because I wanted to play ball, and then I think God's plans and my plans have just been different. And I didn't want to speak. I was shy. I don't, I'm passionate now. So my passion takes over, but I'm not the guy who really wants to go speak. But now I've kind of come accustomed to it, and I'm just extremely passionate. So, hey, got to do what I got to do. But I kept getting put in situations, or like, all right, Bryan, you go do it. And I'm like, why I got to do it? No, we talk to you all the time. You be perfect for this. I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then things ain't get right. So then I got sick of being sick and tired. So me being sick and tired of things not being done right, people not getting what they need or conviction, led me to say, let me step up. Let me get more mature and do what I got to do. So people have been telling me I need to speak for years now. I just didn't. I was like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? And then I found out that I started believing in myself more. So I had my journey of believing. I started getting in the rooms with people that were doing this at a high level, and not to be arrogant by no means, because but I was like, man, I can do this. I can do this. It's like kind of like, because I could ball. Like when I go train with NFL guys, I'm like, oh, they thought I was in the league. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, I'm a teacher. I took off today. I'm just trying to, trying to network, trying to get on. You know what I'm saying? But you start realizing that the gift that God put in you, you got what it takes. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the call. You know what I'm saying? He qualifies you. That's no matter what you think of yourself. He got you qualified. You know what I'm saying? So I started believing in myself a little more. And that's, and now I just jumping out on faith and, definitely trying to get in school. We're working on getting in school ASAP to get licensed and really gain more knowledge and open up more doors for myself. But man, it was definitely a transition because I had to accept fact that what I wanted didn't happen. And also I only viewed myself. My lens of success was just right here. That's all it was. You know what I'm saying? And I realized that success is all encompassing. It's so much that's involved in it. So I had to really expand myself. It required me to grow.
Man, that's something that there's a fella that actually he is one of the reasons why Sherelle and I met. But he would always say, you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. So it's so often that people, they see what we have. We had a guest a couple of weeks ago But a lot of times people on the outside, they see a certain something in you that you don't see. And
Mhm.
sometimes it takes us, okay, maybe I think I got 20/20 vision. I think this is where I need to be focused. But you have a gift that you're not even putting to full force. And that person sees it in you. And once you say, well, man, let me just give it a try, you start changing lives like this. And when I finished school and I went off to Miami, I had no intention of coming back to Mississippi. I had exactly what I wanted to do. I had it lined out. I was going to be a marriage and relationship counselor. And it took me forever to find work. So then I started having doubts. Well, I got this psychology degree, and I'm bilingual. So let me get into some of these schools. Let me be a guidance counselor or something just to kind of get my feet wet. But I really didn't it wasn't what I was meant to be doing. And I ended up in child welfare. And once I ended up in child welfare, I was my position called for me to go to a lot of mega churches, a lot of community events, and speak, present on becoming a foster parent. And I just internalized the need for these kids. The desire inside me was so profound to see these kids in a safe place that it just exuded when I got in front of the audience. And just a crowd erupting in cheers, and my coworkers, oh my goodness, Bryan, we didn't know you were a speaker. How long you been? I'm just talking. And it just came
Mhm.
so natural. And they started telling me, you should try to be a motivational speaker. I never really thought anything about motivational speaking. But I'm like, just let me do what I do. So I started researching. Hold up now, they make that type of money? Hold up now. I might need to look into this. So what I started to do was just study some of the areas of, or some of the speakers that spoke in the areas that, I was excited, I was passionate about. And then eventually I found my flow. And one of the things that, I'm sure that you understand is when you're in a mentorship space, you got to understand that I'm not the mentor for everybody. There's a certain population that's going to connect with my message. There's a certain population I'm really going to be able to get through to. So that's one thing that I really had to learn as well. And sometimes we just got to stop, sit down, and just listen, just be quiet. What is being given to us? What's that word? What's that mission that we're really called to be doing? But sometimes we get distracted by the world, by earthly things. And we as adults, we have to do it because that's what we got to pour into our youth. Because
Mhm.
with social media today, they're gonna be looking at everybody else. I want to be doing that. I need to be doing that. That's what I want to get on. I'm supposed to look like her. I'm supposed to like this. No, you got to find out what it is that you're meant to be doing. So,
Absolutely.
as we get ready to wrap up, man, kind of, what are some of the areas that you're really focusing on right now? Some of the things that are in the pipeline, some of the missions, projects you're working on right now.
So I'm doing a lot of educational consulting, going into school districts, working with teachers how to teach social emotional learning curriculum. So I write social emotional learning curriculum, teaching on diversity. The first thing we all talk about diversity, we got to talk about equity first, because I can have
Mm,
a mix. I can have a staff that's black, white, Hispanic, Asian, and everything. But if there's no equity, it doesn't matter. It's just like
true.
it just look good, but it's still whitewashed. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we need equity in our mindset and a number of things, whether it's for, the mindsets of athletes, whether it's for fighting for education, race relations, everything. So I'm big on that. Definitely getting more expanded, getting into school and getting the ball rolling with that math program. Expanding with athletic intelligence. We got some symposiums coming up in some school districts, some panels and stuff like that. Definitely want to connect with you guys and talk about some things with y'all. And fathering, man. Fathering is something really big. Father's rights is something I'm really passionate about. I ain't
Man,
a
we got some
babysitter.
good stuff, man.
I
We
ain't
got
I
some
ain't no
conversation.
babysitter. I ain't no every other weekend person. I'm the father. Um, and I matter, like, for real. So the fact that the system is mom and dads against each other, where you got to prove that one is unfit to get more time, that's a problem. That's problematic right there. God is not the author of confusion, but the minister of reconciliation. So everything should be surrounded around reconciliation. Everything should be surrounded around, parents having to cooperate. But we have to dispel these mindsets and these laws that were created back when women couldn't even go to school and vote. You know what I'm saying? Y'all had to stay home and be with the kids back then. But now women are so progressive, especially Black women, making major moves. So we need more equity when it comes to fathering, when it comes to co-parenting. And I just want men to step up and be more nurturing in general. You ain't just taking them to baseball and football games and playing catch. Nah, you sitting down, because there's no cookie cutter way to do a relationship. You know what I'm saying? You're just having talks with your child, you're praying with your child, you're loving on your child, giving kisses, everything, every aspect. And I want, fathers to see themselves the way God intended for them to be, and see them, especially for Black men, because we get a bad rap, but we out here, we doing our thing. You know what I'm saying? So we got to dispel all this propaganda. And I'm be writing I got my one children's book out, but I'm be writing some more children's books. I'm working on getting punching going.
We definitely do a better job, especially, I'm sorry, Brian, is, especially Black women or just our community, is celebrating more dads. I was having this conversation the other day. I said, those days of single mothers is, there's still some out there, and I ain't saying there's not, but fathers are a lot more involved now, so it's, even though having the single mother narrative or story does help make things look a little bit better, when I hear people say that. I don't have any kids, so I don't know, but I'm just saying from what I've seen. But now it's hard to really claim being a single mother when the father probably has the kids more than the mother does, or is cooking and cleaning and doing. So it's like there's really no more too many single people are really getting.
Well, he want to see the child more, but you only want them. You only gonna let them see him on the court say every other week.
A whole nother show on that one, but there's definitely a lot of men who are stepping up, and I know that I had met a lot of men who were single men and single fathers who, they were taking kids. Mom done took off and went somewhere, you know what I'm saying, and did her own thing. So I do appreciate the fact that you're doing that, because it is so imperative that Black men are involved in their child's life. And I have a very close relationship with my father, so I know that I'm constantly seeking advice. I'm constantly asking for help. So continue to pour into your daughters, continue to pour into your children, because we do need it, and we do remember everything that you're saying, even if you think we're not listening.
Absolutely.
Man, I'm going to just let you know, you probably saw me look off the screen a little bit. You got a couple DMs waiting, because we got some conversations to be had. We definitely are going to have to have another episode with you. We're probably going to loop back around towards the end of the year. Last year, we did like a fatherhood series. So we're definitely going to have to bring you back in. There was one more thing that you said, but this could just go on and on. I just want to just to throw kudos to you. We need more out there like you, man. Not only that's doing it for other kids, but you're doing it for yours, and you're being that example. You're not making excuses, and it's just admirable, man. It's admirable to see that, because you seem like you have got to that point in life where you figured it out. You figured out what it truly means to be a man, specifically a man in our community, because there's a lot of quote unquote, there's a lot of guys out there. We'll just say there are a lot of guys out there, but real men that are actually taking care of business, regardless of what past circumstances were, we need more of those types of examples. So, man, so give us a little input on your books. Where can we find them? Any upcoming events that we can direct some people to? Talk to us on that front.
So I got my Super Sharing book, which is available on Amazon. It's called Super Sharing, and it's available on my website, BryanCarrollAndAssociates.com. Associates is and is spelled out. So BryanCarrollAndAssociates.com. You can get the digital book on there, and or you could order the personal copy. You can message me personally, and I can mail you a copy as well. We're going to do some back to school stuff, but I don't have any set dates right now. And I want to do some more symposiums. I've been talking with a couple coaches in Spring ISD and in Aldine and stuff like that about some symposiums. And now that, before Corona, we were doing college trips. but I want to get some more college trips going. But we'll see how everything's going because I've been talking with like University of Texas and stuff. So I'm excited about it. If anybody want to get any more information, just follow me on social media or come to my website. My website, you can email me or message me that way.
Thank you so much, Bryan, for that. And I'm just glad that you continue to work in your element. I know we're all continuing to grow, and you don't have to be perfect today. You have to be perfect for today. And so I just thank you for continuing to strive to be better and better each day. So I thank you for that. Not only being in an entrepreneur space, being an educator, and also being a great father. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, guys. It was a pleasure.
For sure, for sure. So we're going to put you backstage real quick so we can close out, and then we're going to come back and close out with you, all right?
All right, thank you.
All right, now.
Amazing. It's amazing to see, men that are continuing to strive and they use their story to help inspire other people. We don't do that enough in our community. We get our story and we either mask our story or we don't tell our story or we kind of tell half of the story. So I'm just so glad that he's open to be vulnerable on his struggles, on his test scores, on things that he struggled with. But he uses that to help other people or other young men and women so that they can be better. And that's what life is all about.
That's so real. That's so real. And y'all, y'all need to go to this woman's page, Dr. Sherelle Hobson, and like throw her some hand claps or something because she gets nothing but the best guests. I'm telling you guys, she pulls in nothing but the best. Because we just want to bring people of value, people who are out there doing it, not talking about, not curating content to make themselves look good. That are
Not
out there
complaining about it.
Yeah. So we're going to be back here next week, same time, same place. I'm actually going to be traveling, so I might be, or I will have a different background, a different setting. I'll be in Florida during that time. But guys, same place, same time. Actually, next week will make our 1 year anniversary. So yeah.
Happy
Big things
anniversary.
coming, guys. 1 year deep on the Black Podcast. So keep an eye out on your emails. Keep an eye out on social media. You're going to see more and more of us. And you may see us at a school near you soon. So off that note, y'all have a wonderful remainder of your week. And we'll see you guys next time.